Tonight, the teenagers whose firework rampage left a pensioner dead. After her home was set alight and her killers laughed in the street, Josephine Smith died in her bedroom.
She's an incredible woman. She was the glue for our family. She held us all together. She was the one we all gravitated towards.
Also tonight, the family of a taxi driver lured to his death by a passenger tells us more must be done to protect those who earn their living behind the wheel. The football thug who attacked the Arsenal goalkeeper at the North London derby pleads guilty to assault and... We talked to some London firefighters about the lives they saved after Turkey's earthquake. Good evening. They set out to terrorise people in the week before bonfire night, and sure enough, the reckless actions of two teenagers ended up costing an 88-year-old woman her life. Josephine Smith was in bed asleep when a firework was put through her letterbox in Romford. When it exploded, it set her house alight. Josephine never made it out. 19-year-old Kai Cooper dared his younger accomplice to carry out the crime. Cooper was today found guilty of manslaughter. With the full story, here's Callum Watkinson.
The Arrow shows a teenager running away after pushing a lit firework through the letterbox of a house in Romford. It explodes twice and starts a fire. 88-year-old Josephine Smith, a lifelong East London resident who survived the firestorms of the Blitz, was choked to death by the smoke that filled her home. 19-year-old Kai Cooper was not the teenager in that footage, but he encouraged the younger boy and was convicted today of manslaughter and arson. Afterwards, his victim's family smiled with relief and spoke of the mother and grandmother taken from them.
Mum was just a lovely human being, wasn't she?
Yeah,
she was innocent, undeserving of anything like this. She had no enemies in the world. She's an incredible woman. She was the glue for our family. She held us all together. She was the one we all gravitated towards. And I don't know if we'll ever be the same again.
The house where that life was lived was targeted at random. Cooper and his friend did not know Josephine Smith. He had told someone else his intention was to terrorise members of the public and set off fireworks in the street with no regard for the safety of anybody else. The shop where they were bought is nearby. I want something that is going to go far and quick, Cooper told the vendor.
The issue surrounding the sale of fireworks to the public is a fight that we intend to continue. In addition, the irresponsible way those fireworks were sold on that night haunts everybody who has seen the footage.
Cooper is yet to be sentenced, and though it was not his hand that set the fire, without his encouragement and assistance, this family would not have suffered as they have.
Oh, just an awful story, Callum, and we saw there Josephine's family asking questions about the rules which govern the sale of fireworks now.
It is really sad. Her first great-grandchild is actually due in July. She was in fine health. That was a moment she could have fully expected to see. But yes, they think there's inconsistency around this. You currently need a licence to sell fireworks in the UK most of the time. But during certain periods, the run-up to bonfire night being one of them, you don't need a licence, anyone can sell them. They think there should be consistency around that. They also point out that licensed or unlicensed, you are supposed to be over 18 to buy fireworks. Neither of these boys were Geraint, and they think there should be harsher consequences for anybody who sells fireworks to minors.
All right, Callum, many thanks. The family of a Bolt taxi driver who was stabbed to death while working in Tottenham 2 years ago say that the company hasn't done enough to improve safety measures for drivers. Gabrielle Brigna was attacked by two teenagers in 2021 who booked the journey in an attempt to steal his car. Today, his fiancée and sister continued their campaign for safety improvements. A vigil in Gabrielle's memory is taking place this evening. Anila Dami has been speaking to them.
17 February when he was killed. Valentine's Day, 27 will be his birthday.
Yes.
It's very hard to go through this again and again.
It's been 2 years since Gabriel Brynja was stabbed to death by teenagers in Tottenham while he was working for the taxi service Bolt. His loss felt by his family every single day.
We was hoping the years pass, it will be more easy, but now it's still very painful. It's like yesterday was happened.
On the 17th February 2021, Gabriel's taxi was booked with the intention of robbing him. 2 men aged 19 and 18 were last year found guilty of manslaughter but cleared of murder. Gabriel appeared to be active for over 6 hours on the Bolt app, despite being stationary. His death led to protests outside Bolt's head office, and 24 months on, his family say Bolt hasn't done enough for driver safety.
It's too small, the changes what they make.
It's not helpful.
Just this we want, to make the basic safety measurement.
And we will don't stop with this campaign until we see changes.
While they acknowledge Bolt has made some changes, they want greater security for drivers like insurance and CCTV. Bolt say they condemn violence towards their drivers and say since the incident we have put several new measures in place to support drivers, including welfare checks on static vehicles, the ability for drivers to share live journey details with a third party, and proactive unmatching of drivers and passengers who have rated each other poorly so they cannot be connected again. Although Bolt has met the family, Mara and Atta want another meeting. And with a survey showing 7 in 10 drivers have been assaulted on the job, they say they want no other family to experience a pain like theirs. Tonight, they're holding a vigil to remember Gabriel.
Tell us what he was like.
He was the most beautiful person, hardworking, very good boy. He loved Mara. He wanted to build family.
He was very kind and couldn't do nothing wrong to no one.
They say he was cruelly taken but remains in their heart and won't stop campaigning until they see justice. Anila Dami, ITV News.
In other news, police have discovered the body of a man in a canal in Edmonton. It's believed to be that of 32-year-old Nathan Cole, who was last seen in Walthamstow on the 23rd of January. Formal identification has yet to take place. A Southgate man has been jailed for life for bludgeoning his father to death with a bottle of champagne. Deekan Singh Vig killed his 86-year-old father in a drunken rage at the family home in October 2021. And Kaz Crossley, who was a Love Island finalist in 2018, has reportedly been released from a Dubai prison where she was detained on drugs charges. She was filmed allegedly snorting a white powder in Dubai in 2020, but was detained as she tried to catch a connecting flight to Thailand in Abu Dhabi. A 35-year-old man from Dalton has today admitted assaulting the Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale during the North London derby. Joseph Watts pleaded guilty at Uxbridge Magistrates Court this morning. Anna Geary is at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium where the assault happened. Anna, what more can you tell us?
Geraint, just to go over what and when this happened, this was the North London derby taking place here in the middle of last month. Now, by half-time, Arsenal were 2-0 up, but it was really towards the end of the match when tensions were really running high. And 35-year-old Joseph Watts of Hackney, a Spurs fan, lunged over rows of seats and kicked the goalie, Aaron Ramsdale, in the back. Now, we can show you that footage. Take a look.
You can see it now, here comes the fan, and I'm sure that Spurs will act accordingly. He shouldn't be allowed in the football stadium, that guy. He should not be allowed, and it's completely out of order and unacceptable.
Well, Watts then ran back into the stands. Now, in a victim statement read in front of Uxbridge Magistrates Court today, Aaron Ramsdale describes how he's been seeing a masseuse because his back's been feeling heavy. He said, "I don't think it's acceptable that I should be assaulted at work." And he went on to say that he's wary of similar accidents or similar incidents happening again in the future. Now, Joseph Watts pleaded guilty to assault by beating, of going to an area adjacent to the pitch and of throwing a missile into that area. He was given a 12-month community order. He's been ordered to pay £100 in compensation to the goalkeeper, and he'll do 150 hours of unpaid work. And District Judge A. King, who was sentencing, said when individuals lose self-control, it can have a ripple effect. In this case, there could have been a significant risk of serious public order. Meanwhile, the club here in Tottenham said that violence, simply in any form, has no place in football.
OK, Anna, thank you very much. Katie Price's son, Harvey, has allegedly been the subject of inappropriate and derogatory images shared by a Metropolitan Police officer in a WhatsApp group chat. Speaking on social media, the model shared an image of a letter from the Professional Standards Department of the Force explaining the breach. The Met has confirmed that a hearing is due to take place later this month for 4 days. Still to come, we have the full weather forecast, plus 20 years of congestion charges. But have they worked? And recognising the graffiti artists who transformed the streets of London. But first, such was the devastation caused by the earthquake which shook Turkey and Syria last week. The Turkish government was very quick to make a plea for international help in rescuing the thousands of people who were trapped in the rubble of collapsed buildings. Expert teams from around the world were quickly on the scene, and our guests tonight from the London Fire Brigade were among them.
We're surrounded by devastation. There's so many people who have lost loved ones here. So being able to find live casualties and repatriate children with their parents is such a morale boost for the team here.
And I'm pleased to say that David and his colleague Dominic Mabbott join us now after arriving back in the UK yesterday. Welcome home to you both.
Thank you.
You must be still processing a lot of what you've seen over the last 10 days or so, are you? Tell me.
Yes, well, it's going to take some time, I think, to really just look at what we've been through, what the people of Turkey have been through, disseminate some of that information and work through it and get back to normal work and home life, really.
You can't have seen anything like it. David,
no, I mean, the scale was, surprising to all of us, I think. Many of us have deployed before and trained for this event, but the sheer scale of the devastation that we were faced with was overwhelming, really. I'm really proud of the team. The team did a fantastic job, and as you know, we successfully saved lives.
Well, we've got some pictures here that we can have a look. I think at Dominic doing the job. Why don't you talk us through what's happening here, Dom?
OK, so I'm on the right there in that picture, but I am part of a bigger team, and as we look at that, there are people still inside that property, pulling out further family members. We'd already successfully pulled free a 3-year-old daughter. This is the mother, and inside is her husband, who comes out safely afterwards.
And she's reunited here with her daughter.
That's right.
Wow, what incredible work you were doing. Tell me about your own safety, because I remember I went to the earthquake in Haiti, 10 or 12 years ago now, and I remember the aftershocks were really frightening, but I wasn't going into buildings. It was your job to go into and onto buildings. How did you make sure you were OK?
So we train, and we train hard in the urban search and rescue environment, and everything we do is governed by our own personal safety, from being inside the building, making sure we have safe areas through shoring using timber, making the building structurally sound for our own protection, to having people outside spotting and rotating the crews, because ultimately it's extremely arduous work and you become task focused because we want to succeed. So being disciplined enough to look after your own welfare and rotating with other team members is paramount.
That's part of the job, David, not to get tunnel vision on one particular individual.
Yeah, well, quite. And it was my job as a deployment commander to make sure that everyone remained safe and came back safely. And, there's quite a responsibility for me, having 76 people that are absolutely prepared to risk their life in order to save life. So it was making sure that we put everything we could in place to make our operations as safe as they were and as successful as they were.
And how are you feeling about it now, David, sort of on an emotional level? Because those people have been through a terrible, terrible time. You've played a role in making the situation slightly better, for some families at least.
Yeah, and I think we feel very proud of our achievement. As Dom said, we need to process that now. We have fantastic support systems in place in the fire service, and we will start our kind of decompression and trauma risk management process on Tuesday. So that allows a couple of days off for the team to process what they've been through, and then we'll discuss it as a team.
I was going to say, you've got the weekend off now, have you?
Yes.
OK,
yeah.
well, that's good to hear. Thanks for talking to you, and incredible work you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next tonight, it's been revealed that as many as 2/3 of people in the capital who sign up to give blood don't actually end up doing so. It's a big concern for NHS Blood and Transplant, who today are urging potential donors to follow through with their appointments to avoid any future shortages. Jay Akbar went to meet a woman whose life has been changed by blood donors.
Bola says this very painful process is a blessing compared to her life before it.
I could go to bed at night and say goodnight to my girls, kiss them, and they wake up in the morning, I'm not there. And they start to ask, Daddy, where's Mommy? Is she sick again?
She has sickle cell anemia, a condition more common in black people. Her blood cells die much quicker than normal, so every 6 weeks, doctors replace 6 pints of her blood with that from donors. To her, centres like this one in West London are a lifeline.
Unfortunately, the number of people who end up in these seats with needles in their arms are just a fraction of those who said they would.
More than 60,000 people registered to donate in London last year. Of those, only 22,000 turned up.
They've taken the first step to register, and then life just happens in lots of cases where people get busy, they have family pressures, work pressures, and they just don't get round to donating.
Calvin says they do need those people, especially those from minority backgrounds, including black people who have the type of blood Bola and he needs.
And we use 250 donations a day just for sickle cell patients. I am one sickle cell patient, and it takes an average of 128 people a year to keep me alive.
For anyone still on the fence,
I would say do your best to just look at your calendar and make the time. Like, it is so simple, and also all the people here are really nice.
The more you think about it, the more you're gonna stop yourself doing it.
It's painless and it's over within 5 to 7 minutes.
That 5 to 7 minutes could give someone a new life. Jay Akbar, ITV News.
Now, 20 years ago today, there came into force a transport policy in central London which was and still is very controversial. Questions about whether the congestion charge has actually made a difference to the volume of traffic and pollution levels have been difficult to answer. In a week where yet more charges for drivers in London have dominated the headlines, Daniel Henry takes a look at the impact of the congestion charge.
You've been cycling for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I cycle.
So how have you found it yourself?
They're talking about the congestion charge.
So if everyone had an electric vehicle,
yes,
then what would be the problem? Congestion. Because there'd be no emissions,
no, it won't be emissions,
but there would still be vehicles.
Yes, there'd still be vehicles, yes.
So what are we going to do about that?
20 years after it was introduced, it's still dividing opinion.
I think I've seen in all the figures shown about in the reduction of any of these really bad particles, you know, to say about all these heavy polluting vehicles that are driving around London all day, it's a bit of a fantasy really, because they're not.
They certainly weren't back in 2003.
And at the top of the hour, it's been ludicrously and surprisingly light.
Morning rush hour in central London was unrecognisable.
The plan was to push polluting vehicles out by making them pay to come into the city. 20 years on, drivers are still paying and the roads are packed.
The congestion charge was introduced to help keep the streets of our capital clear. But 20 years on, it's still gridlocked, packed with traffic and clogged with cars. For lots of motorists, the legacy of this is one of failure.
No, I don't accept it as one of failure, absolutely not. Less polluted, I think it's actually more efficient to get around actually as well actually. So I don't accept it's a failure, I think it's transformed the city.
Even with the congestion that we can see right over your shoulder.
I've worked in London for 30 years, I remember what central London was like pre the congestion charge scheme. The congestion you're seeing now is far worse, far worse. We've reduced it by around 30% as a result of the scheme.
But that's not how Frank sees it.
You know, whatever you want to say about environment and congestion and the pollution, everyone's stuck in traffic.
What about the health benefits? You know, they talk about, you know, kind of taking so many cars off the road. They talk about, you know, protecting people's lungs and all of that. That's important, isn't it?
It is very important if it's happening, but it doesn't seem to be happening. You know, what we have is a lot of, you know, we've got a lot of vehicles stuck in traffic.
The congestion charge made history when it came in, but Londoners are already looking to the future.
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think of the ULEZ?
Another story for another day, perhaps.
Well, truthfully.
Yeah, 20 years on, there's more arguments over more charges, isn't there, Daniel?
The arguments just keep coming, don't they, Geraint? It's the ULEZ this time, and that was there, and it is there to introduce by Sadiq Khan to help with air quality. That's the mission behind it. Introduced in April 2019, as we can probably see on the map there. And as I say, there to try and address air quality in London, but the expansion really seems to be causing controversy. You've got boroughs that are fighting against it. People don't like it. So it's going to be difficult to see what happens and if that's going to get through with the support of Londoners.
All right, Daniel, many thanks. To sport now, it's a busy weekend for the capital's football teams.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
Arsenal will be looking to bounce back after losing to rivals Manchester City tomorrow lunchtime with a trip to Birmingham to face Aston Villa. Mikel Arteta's men will face off with their old manager, Unai Emery. As the Gunners look to secure the 3 points, a win could temporarily put them on the summit of the table, with City playing later on in the afternoon. Meanwhile, over in West London, Chelsea will host managerless and bottom-of-the-table Southampton at Stamford Bridge. Graham Potter's men will hope to get a win under their belts after 3 successive draws in the Premier League.
You know, anything can come at you pretty much, because you've got a caretaker manager and they've had a week to prepare some ideas. What's happened before is no reference, really. So that's the challenge. For us, we have to then focus on ourselves and focus on what we're doing well.
Now the ITV News continues with the national and international stories at 6:30. Here's a look at what's happening with Lucrezia.
Jailed for 13 years, the former British Embassy security guard caught spying for the Russians in Berlin. We'll have all the details of the sentencing of David Smith for selling state secrets. Also under pressure, Lancashire police now accused of sexism for releasing personal information about missing mum Nicola Bully. And carrot over stick, the health app One Midland City hopes will get it fit, but will it work? Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Lucrezia will be with you in a minute, but what's happening with the weather this weekend? Here's Philippa Drew with the forecast.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
Hello there. Well, we've rounded off the working week on a pretty quiet note weather-wise. A good deal of dry if rather cloudy weather, and more of the same to come through the next few days. Staying rather cloudy, but the emphasis on dry conditions. It will be quite breezy, but for a time at least, it will also stay fairly mild. However, that is set to change as we head into the new week. So currently we're on the south side of the jet stream, indicated by these milder orange and yellow hues. But as we head into Wednesday, you'll notice the jet stream sinks its way southwards and will be into the blue colours, indicating indicating a change to something a little bit chillier. But that is still a way off, and for the time being, it remains very quiet and very mild. So overnight tonight, still a lot of cloud on the scene, misty, murky, low cloud, perhaps giving 1 or 2 spots of light rain or drizzle, but otherwise essentially a dry night, and with that blanket of cloud, a very mild one too. Temperatures for some of us not falling out of double figures. So tomorrow morning, much like this morning, a lot of cloud on the scene. A weak weather front sinks its way southwards first thing as well, so perhaps 1 or 2 spots of rain on that. But come the afternoon, all of that clears away southwards, much brighter skies to follow, and for many of us, some decent sunny spells to end our Saturday. And it will be mild again, despite the breeze, feeling pretty pleasant where you catch the best of any sunshine. Highs of 13 or 14 Celsius quite widely. And overnight into Sunday, really more of the same, so holding on to the dry and fairly fine conditions, courtesy of an area of high pressure situated just to the south of us. Sunday probably the brightest day of the weekend, but do make the most of it into the new week, turning increasingly cloudy, and that chance of something a little bit chillier come Wednesday too.
Vaillant sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
And finally, to an art form which remains technically illegal in the UK, but has been the source of a huge amount of creativity in London for decades now. Love it or hate it, graffiti has become part of the urban landscape the world over, and in this city, 100 graffiti artists are to have their work put on display at the Saatchi Gallery, no less. Kaf Okpata has been meeting some of them.
The TA Blue 40 mil, they say, we threw down by night, they scrubbed it off by day. That's it. That's the end of it. I'm done. Mic drop.
A 40-year-old rap in front of 40-year-old street art. Graffiti from the past imposed on the walls of the present. Today at the Saatchi Gallery, a 70s throwback to the world of hip-hop and punk.
We've made it very relevant to UK and European kind of street art movements and some of the influences that we've seen go from here over to the US, as well as having some of the greatest American street artists and global street artists in the world.
Once upon a time, art like this was condemned and washed away. Now their creators are on display. The show boasts big-name artists like Bob Gruen, but even bigger are some of the stars he's rubbed shoulders with.
Malcolm actually was originally known as the manager and creator of the Sex Pistols here in London, quite a controversial group. But Malcolm was more of an artist, controversial, and but quite an activist and a rebel. And in the 80s, he went on to work with a lot of hip-hop groups. He actually was one of the first people to put out a multinational album, recording in South Africa and in the Bronx and New York, and kind of combining those things together, those ideas, putting out an album with scratching and hip-hop rappers. And he doesn't really get credit for much of that, so it's nice that he's here in this show.
Far from just a blast from the past, the exhibition also features newer works from these age-old street artists.
Well, you know, it's funny. A lot of the energy that created hip-hop and street art was like a pirate, rebel energy, the way we did this in the beginning. At least a third of pirates in the 18th century. But you would never know that from seeing all the different pirate movies. And so when I did more research, I understood that many of these people that became pirates were former captives that had become slaves. They were rebels. Pirates would capture slave ships. These people would join the ships. So there were there's a lot of stories about who the pirates really were that's not been told.
The Beyond the Streets exhibition will be up and running until May this year, and it promises to add a new beat to a much-loved genre of music. Kaf Okpata, ITV News, Saatchi Gallery.
We're back with the latest after tonight's ITV News at 10. In a moment, Lucrezia will have your ITV Evening News, but from me and the rest of the London team, enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.